Jamie. Good morning. My name is Paul Dalzell. I am the worship coordinator of this, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charleston. Welcome all of you. Welcome to our members, our friends, and if this is your first time here, we welcome you and thank you for joining us today. If you came here to be told all the answers to the big questions, you'll be disappointed. We won't tell you all the answers here. You are more likely to find people who say, "That's interesting, I believe this. Why do you believe that?" What you will find is a community of people, all different, yet all united in the shared values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, all with love at the center. And those people will help you find the answers that are right for you. Please know that we welcome you, whoever you are. Now, a little twist. Do please join us in singing our welcome song. We sing it through twice. And if you feel comfortable doing so, greet those around you with a smile, a nod, or a hello. The words are in your order of service and will be on the screen.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of me, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Please check your insert for goings on here at UUC this coming week. One very important announcement, we are redoing our Members and Friends directory. We are starting a process to create a brand new Members and Friends list. You will see this prompt in several places. You may even see Sarah at some Sunday services asking for your information. On the back of your order of service, you'll see this announcement and a QR code. If you're one of the cool kids like me, you can simply scan that code at your convenience, fill out the form, and you're done. Once you've done it, you will not have to complete it again, and we thank you for your participation. We'll now enter our time of worship with our chalice reading. As Maria lights our chalice, please join me in reading the words in your order of service. We light this chalice, remembering and honoring our own tradition and celebrating the rich diversity of traditions among us. As we search for justice, meaning, and purpose, may we remember that justice, meaning, and purpose live first in deeply listening to one another. Please rise in body, spirit, and voice as you are able for our Song for All, number 1023, Building Bridges. The lyrics will also be on the screens.
I will play it through once, and then we'll sing it twice. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
We come to this sanctuary, whether in person or virtually, to connect with our community, sharing our joys, our celebrations, our sorrows, our concerns, our peace, and our needs helps our community become closer and stronger. And that is the community we all need in these times. We celebrate and remember the life of Jeanette Beisner. Jeanette passed away 5 years ago tomorrow. Bob Beisner is happy to have his sons, Bruce and Keith, and his granddaughter, Kate, here this weekend to mark the occasion. Another joy, there's a protest at the Capitol every Saturday at noon. I have a joy for this and all the communities we are a part of, for those who hold us close, those who care, and those we care for. The concerns written in the book are the usual. I also have a concern for all those who are unhoused and for the sad hearts of those who condemn them and make their lives harder. For all these joys and sorrows, both spoken and unspoken, may we remember that shared joy is multiplied and shared sadness is diminished. Our reading today is Who Sided with Justice by Omar al-Akkad. For the book, One Day, Everyone Will Always Have Been Against This. The moral component of history, the most necessary component, is simply a single question, asked over and over again. When it mattered, who sided with justice and who sided with power? What makes moments like the one we are living in so dangerous and so clarifying is that one way or another, everyone is forced to answer. The introduction to the offering today is Generosity of Spirit by Victoria Weinstein. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of this congregation will be most gratefully received. Please join me in reciting in unison our covenant to each other. Love is the spirit of our faith and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our meditation today is Body Scan Meditation by Laurie Stevens. I invite you into a body scan meditation. You may close your eyes or let them rest as you wish. Settle deeper into your body, into this moment. Focus your attention on the parts of the body which are closest to the earth. Scan your attention slowly upwards. Focus your attention in the center of the body, where air becomes breath, where what is not you becomes you, where the line between blurs in a flow without ceasing. Scan your attention slowly upwards. Focus your attention at the top of the body, where feeling becomes thought and thought becomes action, where action begins to change the world. Now that we have enjoyed the quiet connected to our bodies and noticed how we are connected to the world around us, may we remember that connection with every breath. Does it work? Yep. Got it. A few months ago, my friend and friend of the congregation, Charleston City Council person Joe Solomon, introduced a resolution to the city of Charleston to recognize the genocide in Gaza. Several people spoke in support of the resolution, none as vehemently as our speaker, Morgan Fowler. That was the first time we crossed paths. I was very impressed with her words. We worked together on that and in other groups later, as folks in the progressive community in this area do. So I was not surprised to find her in the group organizing to speak to Senator Shelley Moore Capito, demanding she vote against the large, ugly legislation which would cut Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP benefits, among other things. We, along with Joe, Reverend Jim Lewis, City Council person Beth Kearns, and Lynn May, were arrested on July 25th for assembling peaceably in a hallway, waiting to redress our grievances with the senator. Please welcome my friend, Morgan Fowler.
Good morning, everybody. When Paul asked me to be a speaker at the church, you can imagine the surprise, because I had no idea what Universalists really were. And it's not really every day people from the Muslim faith get invited to talk at a church. And so I had to look a little bit about what the Universalist churches do up, and I was really amazed and inspired by what the mission of the Universalist church is. So much so that I told my friend all about it, and now I've got her going to a UUC in Washington, D.C. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today, and tell you guys a little bit about my story. This story stretches from the back pews of a Southern Baptist church. Goes through some wild years of my teenage life. Goes through some pretty dark moments of loss, and then eventually towards finding my peace in Islam. I'm going to cover a lot of ground with you guys today. It's not all going to be easy, but I promise it's very real. And my hope is that you guys will leave understanding that transformation is possible no matter where you start from. Curiosity is powerful, and compassion can bridge the gaps that you may have never imagined. So I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in a little West Virginia church where you're supposed to accept what you're told. And I didn't do that very well, as you probably know. While most kids were happy to color Noah's Ark, I was the one asking, where's the dinosaurs on the ark? And how come there aren't any women at the Last Supper? I was 6. I'd listen to sermons about loving your neighbor and watching whole sections of our town get ignored. And I couldn't help it. My brain would not let stuff like that just slide by. The teachers in my Sunday school class called me the difficult child. I preferred the word curious. But my curiosity wasn't just about the stories in the Bible that I was learning in Sunday school. It was about people, too. My mom still says, most kids bring home stray puppies. I brought home stray people. If a kid showed up in ragged clothes or folks whispered, stay away from them, I'd definitely end up eating lunch with them at school or dragging them to our dinner table at night. I saw the loneliness and wanted to fill it. So by middle school, I was bouncing between the houses of my very affluent friends and the housing projects. One weeknight could mean etiquette lessons at my friend Peyton's house, and the next might be us sitting on milk crates as chairs at my friend Ranisha's. In one world, I was a novelty. In the other, I was hugged like a daughter. And I learned that love and pain don't really care about zip codes. I learned to exist everywhere comfortably, but nowhere permanently. I didn't fit perfectly anywhere, but I learned to belong everywhere. As high school rolled around, the split between my worlds widened. My wealthier friends were talking about SAT scores and getting their first cars. My friends in the projects were getting pulled into the juvenile system. I was sitting kind of in the middle. But that outsider feeling somewhere along the way turned a little bit rebellious. I didn't really have the tools to channel my anger into advocacy yet. So I leaned into a life that felt like home, and I found home on the streets. The girl who argued theology to her Sunday school teacher became the girl that was just trying to survive. My house was unstable. I gravitated towards people who understood what I felt like was my struggle. I was aligned with people that had records, people who'd done time, and these were the people who also fed me when I was hungry and watched my back when I felt like everyone else had turned away. I know it kind of sounds backwards a little bit that I found safety in the places that everyone told me to stay away from, but I learned loyalty and kindness from the folks that people tell you to clutch your purse around. It didn't take long before that way of life was the only way that I was able to feed myself. I'm not going to incriminate myself on the record here today, but I wasn't exactly following the law. Somehow, in the midst of all that, I kept my grades up, though. And so deep down, I still believed that after all that, I'd escape and go to college one day. I had a full-ride scholarship lined up to go to WVU. And that dream stayed tucked away in my sleeve like my ace in the hole. There was more to life than my current situation, but life threw me another curveball. I got pregnant at 17, 5 months before graduation. And the rumor mill went wild in my church. The people who hugged me on Sundays now shook their heads when they saw me. My mom got pulled aside and asked what she did wrong. My principal used me as the cautionary tale during the sermon on Sunday. Nobody asked me, are you okay? People sung hymns and turned their backs. People that I had sung hymns with in the choir turned their backs on me in the grocery store. I wasn't surprised by their reaction, if I'm being honest, but I was shocked to be at the center of it. And then things with my mom got a little bit strained. She loved me, but she didn't know how to reconcile with my choices. And so when home didn't feel safe, I ran back to the streets. I slept wherever I could. In those places, folks with nothing hugged me like family. Those hugs probably saved my life. My relationships in life reflected the chaos I created around me. I started to date men who promised protection, but brought violence. And after 5 years of toxic abuse, one of my partners held a gun to my head and kept me hostage for 3 days. I thought that was it. but somehow I survived that too. And I swore nobody would get away with that ever again. But then I met a man that was worse. I hit rock bottom in a hospital bed thinking, I can't go out like this. All these regrets, leaving so much unfinished business. And inevitably, I left that man alone and saved my own life. But the damage was still there between me, my kid, my family, my career, and everything around me. And a week after that hospital trip, I found out I was pregnant again. And I thought, maybe this is my second chance. So I dropped all the dangerous stuff, and I tried to stabilize my life. And then after a few months in, I was on a beach trip to Virginia Beach with my mom as we were trying to reconcile our relationship. And I started having labor pains. We stopped at a hospital in Richmond, Virginia. And the doctors told me that I was in labor. And they couldn't stop the labor, but it was too early. My baby's lungs weren't developed. They told me that she wouldn't survive. I was forced to deliver a baby they knew would not live. On the worst day of my life, I met the tiniest fighter. Her heart beat for 8 hours. I held her and felt every beat until it stopped. Those 8 hours changed me forever. They cracked open the hardened shell that I'd built over many years in the streets and made me realize that my fists couldn't save me from everything. If I was going to keep going, I needed healing, real deep healing, something bigger than myself. When I got home from Virginia, I stared at the walls for a lot of nights. I didn't want to keep surviving. I wanted to understand why I had endured so much. At first, I numbed my pain. That was what I was used to. But then I met my now husband. He didn't see damaged goods. He saw someone worth saving, and slowly, the little kid who questioned everything had begun to resurface. So I started Googling at 2 in the morning. And instead of scrolling aimlessly, I read about Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. And surprisingly, Islam spoke to me the loudest. It wasn't the Islam that I'd seen on TV. It was a faith valued in justice, charity, and knowledge. Verses like my favorite verse from the Quran, verily with hardship comes ease, felt like it was written for me. Stories about helping the oppressed and caring orphans made sense of the instinct I'd always had to protect the overlooked. And then there was the structure, which clearly I had never embodied in my life. Praying it 5 times a day, waking up at dawn, fasting, giving to charity. At first glance, and to most people, they sound like a lot of rules. But underneath, they feel like anchors, and they gave me something steady to hold on to when memories of my past threatened to pull me back. I realized that I had always been fighting for justice and care. Islam just handed me a better roadmap. Learning Islam became my quiet rebellion. I learned to pronounce the prayers in Arabic, sometimes laughing at myself through the really bad pronunciations I would come up with. I fasted during Ramadan by choice, not because I didn't have anything to eat. Imagine that. I started to wear the hijab on work Zoom calls. It was safe there behind the web camera because if things got weird, I could just log off. But going public with it was a different story. My first public hijab expose moment was at the airport. Bold choice. My husband called me on FaceTime and wished me well on my trip to Dallas. And when he looked at me, I didn't tell him that this is the first time I was going to publicly put the hijab on. He laughed and said, "Good for you," and made a dua, which is prayer, for my safe travels. But the return trip was a little wild. TSA saw my ID photo, and it didn't match because I had the scarf on. They asked me to remove the scarf so that they could verify my identity in the airport. No, ma'am. They escorted me to the back for every extra check you could probably imagine. I actually had to verify my father's social security number to get on the plane. Weird, because what if I didn't know my dad? I was a little nervous, but I kept the scarf on. When I finally boarded the plane, I called my friend and I said, "Well, that was an adventure. If I can do Texas TSA and a hijab, I guess I can do anything." Sometimes humor's all you got. My family had no idea I'd been practicing Islam in private. So when Easter Sunday came around, and I was expected to be there like normal, it happened to hit right in the middle of Ramadan, and I was fasting. So I decided to just rip the Band-Aid off. I walked into my parents' house with my headscarf on and an empty stomach while Leonard Skinner was blaring through the speakers. And there's goats out in the yard. And all of a sudden, my cousin just looks at me and says, "I guess that means more bacon for us." We laughed. My aunt asked me if I was sick, and then my brother leaned in and he said, "So you're Muslim now?" I nodded. And as the jars of moonshine on Easter Sunday were passed around, our conversation shifted from shock to curiosity. And that awkward laugh was the first step of building a bridge. Faith isn't just grand declarations. It's small daily choices. Choosing honesty when lying would be easier, praying at dawn when sleep calls you, learning that patience isn't weakness. Slowly, I saw the changes in myself. Instead of having road rage, I whispered prayers. Snap reactions with my mom became more calm conversations, well, most of the time. Old street acquaintances still remained in my life, but now I invite them into my healing instead of jumping back into their chaos. Prayer and fasting became spaces where I could breathe, forgive myself, and choose grace. We joke that Islam saved more than a few of my frenemies, because the old me might have punched them, but the Muslim me just prays for him. One of my closest friends is a former Christian minister. Our text thread is literally full of Bible verses and Quran ayahs. Her son reads the Quran that I sent her, and I read the passages that she highlights for me out of the Bible. And when her 70-year-old Southern Baptist father, who's a deacon in the church in Mingo County, came to visit this week, her son immediately pulled out the Quran and started sharing the prophets. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that conversation. I knew my worlds were colliding in the best way. These conversations remind me that faith isn't about one. It's about exploring our shared stories and our values. I joke that I'm bilingual in religion, fluent in Baptist and Islam, and finding humor in that makes hard talks a lot easier and be able to bring people together. Meanwhile, my daughter was watching all of this. I didn't shove Islam down her throat. I answered her questions about God, religion, and everything in between. And last year, she told me she wanted to take her Shahada, which is the Islamic declaration of faith. I asked her if she knew what that really meant. She said yes. And when she recited the words of the Shahada, my eyes filled with tears. Not because she copied me, though, but because she chose her own path. Breaking cycles isn't just surviving, it's giving the next generation the options that you never had. Social justice isn't just a job for me, it's who I am. I've worked in public defense and indigent legal support for many years, and now I serve as a political connector. And yes, sometimes a good trouble activist with my friend in the front row. I sit in boardrooms and courtrooms and talk about people society writes off, because I've been one of them. I work with people that have PhDs and felonies, and I've learned from all of them. I speak both languages because I've lived in both realities. I'll lead a protest at noon and a PTA meeting at 3 o'clock. Bringing those worlds together feels natural to me because I've always been about bridging cultures my whole life. It's the professional version of bringing stray friends home for dinner. It's wild to reflect on my shift. I used to react with fists and harsh words, but now I channel that fire into organizing and writing. I still have passion, but it's harnessed. I like to say Islam saved a lot of people. When I'm mad, I just write an op-ed now instead of throwing punches. Humor aside, that transformation saved me too. It gave me purpose behind a lot of pain. If there's one thing through every chapter and every thread, it's curiosity. It took me from asking about dinosaurs in the church to studying the Quran at midnight. It kept me alive on the streets. It pushed me to understand justice after my child passed. And it led me to a faith that told me questioning wasn't rebellion, it was worship. And today my table has cornbread and baklava, beans and couscous. And I still jam to Leonard Skinner with my family. but now the call to prayer sometimes comes on between the songs. I still laugh with my family even when they forget my halal diet, even though I'm really sure they don't forget it. I think they do it on purpose. My faith didn't erase who I am. It defined and expanded it. And I share this because I know what it feels like to not belong. If you're carrying trauma, regret, or labels others have given you, know this: you're not defined by your worst moments. Transformation doesn't mean deleting your past. It means weaving it into something stronger, staying curious, finding compassion for the overlooked. Laugh whenever you can, and trust that there's a path to peace, even if it looks unconventional, like cornbread and baklava on the same plate. So here I am today, a girl from the hills of West Virginia, born into cornbread and beans, and now grounded by couscous and baklava, and the 5 daily prayers that keep me steady in a world that never really was. I didn't arrive at Islam through a perfect life or a gentle journey. I arrived bloodied, bruised, and barefoot, dragging every lesson I learned along the way. But when I got here, I was met with mercy, with order, with discipline, with peace, with a faith that didn't care where I'd been, only where I was going. Islam taught me to walk away from the fists, to raise my voice only when it speaks truth, to stand on the side of justice, not just when it's easy, but when it's lonely, to hold myself accountable even when the world doesn't, and to keep showing up, clean heart, open hands for the people who've never had anybody to show up for them. I know I don't really fit the mold of what people expect when they hear the word Muslim. That's my favorite part. But that's okay. I've never fit any mold, and clearly God didn't ask me to. I was made for a path that's messy and miraculous, and I was made to feel the fire and choose softness anyways. To know what violence tastes like, but still have a hunger for peace, and to carry pain, but not to pass it on. So I didn't find Islam in a quiet mosque or on a still night. I found it in the wreckage, and oftentimes if you ask people who have converted to Islam, they're some of the most broken people in society. I found it at the end of myself, and it brought me back to life. So if nothing else, let my story remind you that faith is not perfect. It's not for the perfect. It's for the people that the world throws away. It's for the lost and the lonely and the loudmouth troublemakers who ask too many questions in Sunday school and find their peace in prayer and find their peace in a prayer rug decades later. It's for the girls who survived and now get to live. Thank you.
Let's sing again. I invite you to rise in voice, body, or spirit. Our last song for all, number 1060, as we sing of hope and joy.
This is a song we do not know. I'm going to play it through once and then just the voice part, and hopefully we learn it, so next time we maybe know it, maybe. Okay, I can't read the words in the music, so that means I can't help you sing it, and you can't sing it on your own, so we'll try it again another time. Thank you.
Our closing words today are Our Calling in the World by Rebecca Savage. We have come to the end of our service, but not our calling in the world. We close our time together with the humble reminder that justice and equity are our spiritual practices to embrace. Each day, every day, we are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible. When justice and equity ground us in all that we do, may we go forth with the light and warmth of our chalice in our hearts until we are together again.